I'm going to stop when I want to stop, not when you want to stop.
In the third episode of Bound to Talk, Malicious Melissa interviews Sean, a foot enthusiast. They discuss theories on foot fetish, what he's attracted to, acts of foot worshipping, and how this impacts his relationships.
The look on your face.
Who, Adam or me? Him? Did he get mad? He does.
Well, I didn't say go.
Because he's like, no!
Okay.
Alright. Now we're recording on the camera too.
Hi, I'm Melissa. Adam, no, I gotta start again. Hi, I'm Malicious Melissa and my co-host.
Adam.
And our special guest, Sean, who is a foot enthusiast. Thank you for being here, Sean.
Glad to be here.
So where do you think your foot fetish stems from?
Gosh, I don't know. I've done a lot of reading, online, where it's theorized that, when small children are crawling around on the ground and they're by their mom's feet, but that, I don't believe that. That's just doesn't seem like where mine comes from.
So that's what it says?
That's one of the theories on the internet.
Okay.
Another one's there's cross wiring in the brain between the genitals and the feet, but I don't know how
that's interesting.
would correlate with what I like if
yours is crossed?
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. So, what's your first memory of the feet doing something for you? Sexual attraction?
When I was in 6th or 7th grade.
Okay.
There was this girl that sat next to me, and I'd have my head on the desk, or I'd have my elbow on the desk, holding my head, and just looking down, and I was just staring constantly.
And what were you feeling? Attraction? Or were you just bored and that was something to look at and it turned into something?
It wasn't bored. It was definitely attraction.
Okay. That's interesting. So how old were you? You said 6th
grade? 6th or 7th grade.
Okay, so that's 12, something like that. That's pretty young.
The puberty ages.
Yeah, so that's probably right around that time. What is it about the feet that you're attracted to?
I like all of it, really. I like the toes, the way toenails look. It's just very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I like touching them, kissing, licking, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. I don't really... I want to just say everything and make it really easy because it really is almost everything.
But everyone's feet look different though. So there's got to be some that maybe are more special to you than others.
I've thought of that and I try defining what makes some people have bad feet.
Yes.
And it's hit or miss. It's you just know or you don't. I don't know how I know or how I don't.
But you can't pick apart certain parts of the foot.
If some people have with
the toes. So there's some toes that are just kind of down in a row, and there's not one that sticks out that's bigger or whatever. It's just on an angle. So to me, I like the way that looks.
Stairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, stairs are very, very aesthetically pleasing.
Okay.
When the first toe sticks out past the big toe.
Yes.
That looks really strange. I've seen a couple people where their ring toe,
okay,
the fourth one,
sure,
or the third, I don't know how we're counting, is super small.
Okay.
And it's smaller than the pinky toe, and that looks terrible.
That. Okay. But so you're not into those?
Oh God, no.
Oh, so then there is a difference.
If we're talking about it, I can think of things, but in my mind, I don't know until it comes up. If that makes any sense.
So if you were to picture the perfect foot, what would it look like?
It has the stair toes for sure.
Okay. Does it matter about skin color?
Sometimes.
Why sometimes?
Everyone has preferences when it comes to skin color. I don't want it to be paper white. Like
Paper what?
like tanned looks good. Like more like brownish colors, but like super dark doesn't really do it for me either.
Okay, so the extremes you don't like.
Right.
Okay.
I like the middle of like the gradient.
Okay, and then what about like the bottom of the feet? Like, does that matter? Because do you have different size arches?
High arches are definitely better than like less high.
Why is that?
It looks sexier.
Okay.
Flat feet don't look very aesthetically pleasing.
Okay.
That's why like sometimes you get in a trap where like the top looks really good, but then the rest of it doesn't.
That reminds me of like the butterface thing. Yeah. So you know what that is, right? Everything. What is the saying?
Everything but her face.
Everything
Yeah,
looks good about
everything's
her.
hot but her face. Exactly. But that's like the most important part. Okay, but for you, the most important part is the outside or underneath or both?
My favorite part's definitely the toes.
The toes. Does it matter about like nail polish, colors, or whether it's on?
Sometimes I don't like pastel looking colors,
Okay.
but I like the shinier looking like purples. Like purple. Purple's really hot. I think red is overdone, so it's kind of trashy.
Okay.
Well, red's like the stripper color, and sometimes you don't want the stripper
Red
color.
is the dominatrix color. The lipstick and like the nails usually. Okay. So purple. So dark, like deeper purples.
Like deeper purples. Blue's kind of hot sometimes too.
Okay.
Not terribly fond of like green.
Because it looks weird.
Green looks really weird. I don't like white, like where the nails painted like solid white.
That you don't really see that too often.
Like some people do it and it looks terrible.
There's a lot that you think looks terrible and like not too many things that are like good. So you are pretty particular with it.
Yeah, if
Like
I
you're kind of pinpointing it.
if I think about it.
Yeah, that's what we'll.
But,
I
like,
want
it
you
has to, like,
think
come
about
up.
it. Yes, I want you to think about it.
But it's not something like I keep in my mind where if like I'm asked the question again, like I won't have these answers like ready to go. It's like I said, it's just you know or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to make sense.
So what about like calluses or anything like that?
No, I prefer well maintained.
Okay.
I don't like, you know, like deformities or like calluses.
Yeah,
or,
but how often do you come across deformities?
like calluses?
Well, callus is not a deformity.
Well-
That's just people have those. I think everybody probably has those.
Well, I don't find them particularly appealing.
Okay. Well, have you had just like a fresh foot that just looks like really nice skin and like no hard parts or anything on there?
Yes.
Really? And
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay. Well, that's what we go get pedicures for, is to get everything, you know, kind of smoothed out and to make it look nice. And you were telling me before that was something that you like wanted to get into, like to be a professional, or
Well, no,
like a side hobby.
I don't want to be like professional. I just think it's a very useful skill to have considering my interests.
Okay. So then you could perform pedicures?
Yes, but I've tried. I'm not like formally trained or anything, so I'm not really like good with that.
Do you watch videos on it?
I've watched like hours and hours of these videos.
What
but like
kind of videos?
I watch a lot of like how to tutorials and like, you know, nail techniques and pedicures.
Okay.
I have this are like one or two books on like foot massage.
Okay.
I read those. I watch a lot of those videos.
Reflexology stuff?
Yeah, or like,
Okay.
and then there's like some acupressure stuff.
Sure. So that helped you kind of hone your skills?
I would say so.
Okay.
A little bit.
So when you're watching the videos, is it strictly to learn the technique, or is it, you know, some kind of pleasure that you're getting from watching it, or is it both?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Mostly to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if the models they use are like attractive, I'm not gonna like look away.
Okay, so what would be the attraction? The feet, or like the whole?
Well, you don't see like most of like the videos are like knee or ankle down.
Okay, so you're only seeing that area.
Right.
Do you look at the legs too, when you're like selecting your partners and deciding like who's great and who's not?
Not as much as like other people would probably think that I do.
Okay. What does that mean?
Like legs and feet most of the time, like it lumped together.
Mm-hmm.
But
for you, it's separate. So it's mostly the like just looking at the feet.
Correct.
Okay. So then would it matter about like body weight? Because, you know, a woman who is overweight, maybe her ankles look fuller. So that's really close to the foot. You said the legs aren't really a big deal, but would that be?
Not necessarily. Like it's...
Or even like their actual foot, it's fuller because there's fat on it. So maybe the toes would be a little bit pudgier, or like the top of the foot would be a little bit fuller. Like a meaty foot.
Like some meat's fine sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like sometimes.
Why is it always sometimes?
Well, no, because sometimes you're in the mood for something different.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's like you don't always get the same pizza, right? Sometimes you want like you want pepperoni instead of just sausage.
So that's something that I think I've like kind of discovered, you know, talking to my girlfriends versus talking to guys. Guys want this variety of women, variety of whatever. A lot of girls will figure out what they really like, and that's what they go for. And it's like they've narrowed it down, and we don't want variety, like we know what we want, and then that's kind of the way that it goes.
See, guys know what they want, but it's not just always one thing. It's like I want like a buffet.
That's awesome. I love that. Like a buffet of all different kinds of feet. That's pretty cool. So it doesn't matter about weight. Like some days you want that. Some days it's like a skinny foot is okay too.
Like I definitely know. Like I prefer slender and like longer.
Longer what?
Like the foot being longer.
Foot?
Like
so not the toes.
The toes being like slightly longer too, because it's easier to like play with than like super petite feet.
Okay. The whole foot being petite.
Right. But
why is it easier to play with?
Well, when I'm like doing like foot worship,
yes,
I was taught that some people.
Wait, taught by who?
Professional dominatrix.
Okay.
Because before I didn't really know like what to do, and so when I was in sessions with her, she taught me like, oh, your hands should never be idle, because some people think foot worship's only with your mouth.
Okay.
But she liked like with my hands like massaging her feet while like my mouth was like sucking her toes or licking or nibbling.
Okay.
So that's like my style, because that's how I was taught. Mm-hmm. So I find it really difficult to like multitask if the foot's very small.
Okay, that makes sense, because there's just not enough surface area
Correct.
for you to do that. But it's not really the coordination of it.
No, it's just there's not enough room.
That's funny. So the girls with the longer toes, those are kind of like the gripper toes. Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Where they can like lift things up or pick things up. So how do you feel about that? Do you like that or not?
See, I'm going to sound indecisive because it's... I don't like super long like talons.
Well, I'm not talking about
So there's
talons.
like the medium.
I don't know what the medium is, because like I've seen a lot of guys who are, you know, they can just pick up things with their feet. Like I can't do that. Like I can't pick up anything with my feet, and I do have small feet, but I don't have those gripper toes. They're just kind of flat, and they don't do anything. They're just there. So that's what I'm asking. Like, is there a preference between like the toes that can perform a task versus the toes that don't, or what?
Toes that can perform a task are better than toes that can't.
And why is that? Is it because it's easier for you to worship it?
Correct.
Okay, but that's the only reason.
Yes.
It's not like the aesthetics of
No.
it. Okay. So for somebody, it sounds like you're actually pretty particular, which is fine. So for that, like I would think that this would be more of like a submissive thing, but to somebody who's very particular, like would you consider yourself a submissive?
So I have submissive tendencies. I would say. Like, I have preferences, but then I also have, like, sometimes you just take what you can get, because, like, finding a partner isn't exactly, like, it's not as common as you think it would be, or not as easy as you think it would be.
That's into foot fetish?
Correct.
Okay.
So, like, while I have, like, an ideal foot in my mind, that's not, like, the only thing I like, if that doesn't contradict what I just said earlier.
A little bit.
Well, it's like, you know what you like, but you're also fine with, like, this is acceptable, this is acceptable, this is acceptable as well.
Okay, so have you run across a foot that you were like, no, I don't want to do this?
Yes.
And then tell me about that. How did that go?
I had met up with somebody, like, online, or I met online, and then who said they were, like, looking for someone to, like, play with their feet. And I'm like, oh, perfect. And, like, she sent me a picture, and the picture looked really good. And then I met her, and I was like...
A picture of her feet?
Yes.
Okay.
I had also seen, like, a picture of what she looked like, too.
Okay.
But I had a picture of her feet, and I was like, the picture looks good. And then we met up, and then, like, her feet, like, weren't doing it for me that day.
But did they resemble the picture?
See, no, they didn't.
So was it catfishing?
It was like cat footing, I guess.
I love it. Okay.
So then I, like, faked like I was feeling ill, so I just left.
Oh, wow.
And then she's
That's like a date, like a bad date.
And then it was like, well, you know, we should get together sometime when you're feeling better. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry, I'll call you. And I never did.
So, but she looked like she did in her
face
picture, right?
picture.
Her face picture
right.
did.
But I don't think the foot picture looked like what I was actually presented.
So that, for you, was the deal breaker. That took precedence over, it didn't matter what the rest of her really looked like.
Right, because it wasn't like a romantic, like we were going to date or anything. It was just to play, like, one time or a couple of times, like maybe in the future.
I see, yeah.
But I got cat-footed.
Was that the only time that you got cat-footed?
Well, there was another time where I was working at this, I was working at a fetish convention.
Is this the one you told me about?
Yes.
Okay, I would love to hear that story again.
So should I just start from
the whole thing?
Okay,
yep.
So here, I have the exact date if it matters.
It does not matter.
It matters to me.
Okay. Sounds good.
Some of your listeners might have been my customers then.
Your customers? Were they paid customers?
No. So there's a convention in Rosemont in, like, July or August called Exotica. Mm-hmm. And in 2014, I was working, or I'd say working, but I, like, volunteered to be, like, part of the foot worship station in, like, their dungeon setting in the convention. Mm-hmm. And
how did you do that? Did they contact you? Did you find them online? Like, how did you find out about it?
There was they were looking for people, so they posted, like, there was, like, a couple on, like, Backpage I saw later.
Okay.
Went back before Backpage got, like, shut down for all their, like, fetishy stuff.
I didn't know that it was shut down.
Yeah, they don't have, like, the domination or, like, you can't find, like, fetishy stuff easily on Backpage.
Okay.
Now you just have to go to the dating section. But there's a couple of things on Backpage that I saw later. But I saw one post on FetLife.
Okay.
Which is, like, I call it fetish Facebook.
It is. That's exactly what it is. People think it's going to be like a dating site, and it's not. Like, you actually have to kind of make friends with these people. Okay, continue.
I could talk about what you just mentioned, like,
for
like 20 minutes.
Sure.
But, so there was a listing, or essentially a listing. Like, they're like, hey,
the postings.
This is what we're looking for. Contact so-and-so to essentially apply. So I followed the instructions. I contacted the contact who was running it, and then I got on board. Mm-hmm. And then they had told me how it's going to be, like, all foot worship. Like, you can you negotiate with your customer, and that's in air quotes, but you can't see me. So the customer, and to see what they want, but then they told us they had told me, because I was the only person there at the time, don't, like, ask if you can, like, you know, lick their feet or suck their toes. If they want it, they'll ask.
Well, can you tell them, like, the list of services that you perform?
They had said just offer a foot rub, and then if they want more, they'll let you know.
And I don't think that that's true, especially at Exotica, because Exotica is a porn convention. It's not a fetish community, you know?
Yeah.
You agree? Okay, continue.
That's what I was told.
Okay.
So then the very first person that came to me had, like, some of the worst feet I had ever seen.
What did you say, the first person?
The first, like, my first customer.
The client, yes.
Had, like, the worst feet. Like, they were very, like, calloused and everything was rough. And it's like she didn't take care of her feet at all. And, like, her toenails were all jagged. It was terrible. And, like, I couldn't really say no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I would think not.
So I just, like, I rubbed her feet the best I could. Mm-hmm. Considering it wasn't my jam. Mm-hmm. And then I sent her on her way. But, like, in my mind, I did an intentionally terrible job so she wouldn't come back.
Okay, so
because I had other people, like, I had this one lady, she came back to me, like, 8-9 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was working at, like, one of the strip club booths.
Okay.
But she came, like, every, like, 30 minutes. I need another foot rub.
And how did you feel about that?
Oh, I felt proud that she enjoyed my skill.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, that's cool.
I had a couple other, like, repeat people, but that woman came back the most.
So did they ask you to do anything more than just rub their feet?
One lady wanted her toe sucked, and since I didn't bring it up, like, it was okay.
Sure.
So I sucked her toes.
Uh-huh.
But then she had to, like, leave because she wanted to go to, I don't know, they had, like, panels or something.
Okay.
I was stuck in the dungeon area the whole time, so I didn't really get to explore. Mm-hmm. And that was my only time ever going, so I don't really know what's actually at that convention.
Yeah, they have a little area where they do the classes. Like, they have those classes for Kinky College. They have that, too, and the same place runs that. So it's just, like, a separate area.
So she had to go for something.
That's probably what it was. Okay. And then, like, how did it go with the place that hired you?
So for the first, like, couple hours on the first day, I was told I'd be the only one there.
Okay.
Like, my foot worship station's my foot worship station.
Okay.
But then there was this other gentleman who he's, like, friends with all the people running it, and he's into, like, foot worship and everything, too. Mm-hmm. So he got to join me. And, you know, I was like, I thought this was mine. So now I had half the people. Uh-huh. And then, like, a lot of the women coming to our section who wanted, like, their feet, like, worshipped or rubbed knew him. So then I was just like, oh, who's this guy? Mm-hmm. So then they
went to him.
They went straight to him.
And then you told me he had a t-shirt.
Oh, so one of the problems we were having was nobody really knew why we were there. Because our section was, like, 2 benches, like, in the form of an L. And there was nothing saying, like, what we were there for. So it's just, like, essentially I'm just sitting on a bench. And it just looks like I'm just bored at the convention. Okay. Unless I wanted to, like, go up to a random woman, like, hey, by the way, would you like me to rub your feet or whatever? So, but he came with a t-shirt that said, like, foot worship station. So we turned that into a sign with a chair, and then people, like, knew why we were there. Mm-hmm. Though one of the mistresses who was running the dungeon eventually, like, essentially pimped me out to, like, some of the porn stars that were there. Okay. So, like, they would be signing autographs and it's like, hey, I got this boy, would you like him to rub your feet? And they're like, oh yeah. So I rubbed a couple porn stars' feet.
How was that? Did you know them?
I didn't.
Okay.
I can only name, like, 2 or 3 porn stars.
Yeah, me too.
But I got a signed picture from one of them. It says, thanks for the foot rub, stay naughty for me.
That's awesome. So how were their feet?
They were great.
Yeah, because they're like Barbies. So I would think that their feet would be pretty nice. So that was, like, the best feet of the whole the whole evening. Did that make it worth it for you? Or did you not feel like that experience was worth doing?
Well, I felt like just going and like being in that setting was a good experience that I'm glad I had. But at the same time, like I wished it was like better. Meaning like it didn't live up to my expectations, but I would still do it again. Just so I have the exposure to like what the Exotica convention's like, the kind of people that go there. If that makes sense.
But would you pay to do that again?
No.
Okay.
Because I did pay for the privilege of doing that. And I paid what I felt was way too much for what I actually ended up receiving in return.
Okay. That makes sense. So back to my other question about identifying as a submissive. Do you identify as a submissive?
Sometimes.
So is it in personal life or is it just in the foot worship play? Like how does that work for you?
In foot worship play, I'm definitely submissive.
Okay.
In my personal life, I like switch back and forth. Like in my like friend circles, I'm very like dominant because I'm like the leader of the groups always.
Okay.
In like romantic relationships, it definitely like I try to lean more submissive.
Okay.
Because like I feel like naturally drawn to that, but
naturally drawn to what?
To be more submissive than dominant in my like our personal relationships.
Okay.
But then like the people I'm in relationships with, they want to be more submissive than dominant.
That's just what you've come across?
That's what I've come across. So then I have to like fill the role of like more in control than not.
But it doesn't feel natural because you naturally feel more submissive. Is that right?
It's like I'm a like switch.
Okay.
But I'm more submissive than dominant.
Well, with the switching, it's usually just during play, like during sessions, but not necessarily in like a relationship. You're kind of one thing or another thing. So, like, I don't actually believe in the alpha with beta tendencies or the vice versa. I think you're kind of one thing or you're the other thing.
Right.
There could be certain degrees of it, but I mean, I don't think you can identify as like two different things. So for you, it would probably be what? More submissive then?
More submissive, but not like pure submissive.
So do you want a girl who is dominant then? Like that's what you are seeking?
Yes.
Okay. And that hasn't happened so far?
No.
Is that why you went with the dominatrixes? To experience what like a foot worship session would be like with the dominant woman?
Yes.
And how did that play out?
Like the first one I went to when I was like 22, and I looked really young, so she actually carded me because she thought like there's no way you're old enough to be doing this.
Okay.
Which I thought was really funny because I almost left my wallet in the car.
Okay.
And it was like the 2 hour, because I had a 2 hour session. It was like 2 hours that like I felt like I'd been waiting for my entire life, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like I had always wanted that, and then I've done several sessions since.
With that same person or with different?
I did 2 more with her.
Okay.
And then, well, so she ended up retiring, so she doesn't do sessions anymore.
Okay.
But like on our second session, like she just like I had casually mentioned how like it's quite the financial strain to do like, because I want to do them constantly, but I couldn't really afford it because I was paying for school and such.
Okay.
So she told me about like foot parties and how that's like a similar experience for it's cheaper. Mm-hmm. It's not as like a personal connection, but if you're just looking for feet and you want the variety, which I didn't know I wanted until I went.
Okay.
That's perfect. And so here, do your listeners know where we are?
What do you mean here?
Like the Chicago,
city?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to like give you one.
Well, thank you.
So in Chicago, back then, there was 3 like main foot parties that I knew about. And I think now there's only 2 because one of the places like stopped doing them monthly.
What are these dungeons?
One was ran by a dungeon. One's ran by a guy who's like really big into like the foot fetish community in the area, and he runs like 2 or 3 or 4 parties a year.
Okay.
And then another one, the third one, is ran out of this woman's house, and it's ran by 2 women, and they like are known in the scene too. I wouldn't know like how well known people are because I'm not like super into like going to like BDSM clubs and such. I went to like a couple of them, but I don't have like a membership or anything.
Okay.
So I don't know how well known the people running these things are because I just heard about one from a dominatrix, and then I heard about the other 2 from the first party I went to. So there used to be 3, now there's only like 2, and those are great. Sometimes.
How often are those held?
So the one ran by the guy, who I don't know if I can use his name.
No.
So the guy, he has like 3 or 4 a year, and then the one run by the 2 women are like twice a year.
Okay.
And then the third one was monthly, but now they don't do it anymore.
The monthly one is not running?
Correct.
So how often are these parties then? Now?
So I know there's one coming up in October.
Okay.
And there was one in like August or July.
Did you go to that one?
No.
You did not. Okay.
The last one I went to was in like February.
Okay.
I believe it was February.
So like every few months or so.
Right.
Is kind of. Is it because there's not enough people that are into the foot worshipping, so they're not holding the events, or you don't know why?
Why they don't do them like all the time?
Yeah.
I think it's just, people are busy and they want to have like a bunch of people attend, so
Sure.
they plan them a couple months in advance so you can like clear your schedule.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So back to dating. So you said you've ended up dating submissive girls. Do these submissive girls have to have like pretty feet? Does that matter? Like, how do you screen that?
So most of the relationships I've like entered, like they start, like I meet these girls in like winter or like when it's colder, so they're not wearing like sandals or anything.
So you can't
get
tell.
like the sneak peek.
I love that. It's great. Okay.
I don't think I've dated anyone with like terrible like feet. I've just been fortunate so far.
So the girls that you're meeting in winter, like you're getting to know them, you're liking them, so you're dating. And like, what if you really like a girl but you don't like her feet? Like that's never happened?
That has not happened.
Wow.
But I don't know if I don't know how I am in that regard. If I'd be like, I like your personality, I like her compatibility, except for your feet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be shallow like that, where I'm like, no.
Well, it sounds like it's so important to you. So,
But it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, so you can't say. But it's possible that it could be like a deal breaker. Or you don't think so.
Oh, okay, well, what I can say is I had one girl that I dated that she wasn't into like the whole foot thing at all.
Okay. And she knew about
it,
what you liked.
Right.
Okay.
So like that was a deal breaker. But I like to think that if I dated a girl and her feet were like all right, like back to the whole like I have my favorite but I also have things that are acceptable.
Yes.
And she was into it, I think that would work.
Okay.
If she had like gnarly like feet, I don't know. I don't think that would work. I don't know how shallow I'd be though.
Okay.
So we talked to someone before who was into BDSM lifestyle, and he had mentioned that he would be okay with the relationship being more vanilla if because he also did that as part of his job. He was like a fetish porn actor. So if he could kind of do that, it didn't necessarily have to be part of the relationship. But for you kind of want that as one and the same.
Right.
You want the relationship to involve the foot worshipping. You don't want to just have like a girlfriend and then do foot worshipping elsewhere at like these parties, for example, or...
I've never went to a party while I was in a relationship.
Okay.
In my mind, it's like a form of cheating.
Okay.
Right.
Why is that? Is it because it's sexual for you?
It's sexual for me.
Okay.
So I don't
but
want to...
what if she was okay with that?
If she was okay with that, like, I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
But, like, you'd obviously have to discuss that first. Like, I would never like go to like a foot fetish party or like some other form of event while I was in a relationship without them knowing, because I feel like that violates their trust.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So when you're with a girl, you're monogamous with her both sexually and with the feet.
Correct.
Okay. And
Because the feet is sexual.
okay, so then that brings me to, a woman in general. What about other parts of the woman, like the female anatomy? Breasts, ass, etc. How significant are those, or is it just all about the feet?
So I like other parts like breast, butts, and such. If they're lacking in like one, like, so say a woman has like really tiny breasts and I like, medium-sized breasts, or she has no butt and I want there to be a butt, but she has like amazing feet, I will overlook the other two.
Okay. So it is the most important.
It's the most important.
Okay.
But it's not like, I like the other things too.
Okay.
Because there's like some forms of foot fetish where it's like they want just a disembodied foot. It's like, I don't care about the rest of you. I just want pretty
really?
feet.
Okay. That's interesting. But if you were, let's say you were going to watch porn, would you want it to be the whole body and the feet, or can it just be the feet?
I prefer feet only, like foot fetish porn.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen like other like porn that's like vanilla porn, but then there's like a couple like foot scenes. And they're all right, but it's not like my go-to favorite, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but why?
I also don't really I like lesbian like foot worship porn.
So the girls are doing it to each other?
Right. And within that, I like more like dominant settings. So like one girl's like a slave, and then the other one's like a mistress. Like I like that, because then you get like a pretty foot, and then usually a pretty face too.
Okay.
And that's attractive. I don't want to see like a big dick that makes me feel inadequate.
Okay.
With a pretty foot, if you understand.
Yeah. So because most of the men in the porn industry are like well endowed, so you just don't want that to be a part of the
and
fantasy.
I don't
for
want to
you?
like see a penis while I'm like doing my business. It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, but most guys, like, the number one selling porn is like couples porn. It's the male and female. Like,
Right.
I think a lot of guys, Adam, you can probably speak up about this, like, go ahead and you're going to say it better.
Well, I guess it gives it that imagination, right? That you're participating, right? Or like you can imagine what that feels like. If I'm watching a girl, go down on a girl or a girl scissoring or whatever, I don't know, like I don't have any frame of reference, so.
But I guess I'm like in the minority in that regard. I don't like imagine it's me in the video. I'm just watching. I prefer to be the fly on the wall.
So you're not pretending that you're doing that to those feet?
Correct.
Okay.
Just observing.
Yeah, I don't know how it is with other guys if it's like, because I know for a lot of them they're fantasizing like to be in that scenario, and I can only speak for myself. I'm not a porn watcher, but when I have watched porn, I'm definitely not imagining myself in the situation. It's just like you watch animals. Like, I'm seeing two people do things that's sexual, so then of course my body's going to have a response and it's going to turn me on, but not that I'm in there with them or that I know what that feels like, because that's definitely not it. It's just like it's purely visual and there's no imagination with it. So would you say that's kind of similar?
I think I'm more similar to that.
Okay. So how does all of this affect your personal life? Like, does your family know, your friends? You disclose this to girlfriends always?
So I'll go do the girlfriend part first. I let them know early on because I don't know, I prefer to be honest than not. Like, I'm a terrible liar. So I tell girls I'm like dating fairly early on, like, oh, this is a part of me. So I disclose that information.
Okay.
My family only knows because when I was younger, I'd screw up. like my brother and sister figured it out because I had like a picture of feet in my wallet. I was like 13, so they were like snooping through my stuff and found it. I had like this is
How
like
did you explain that?
I'm a terrible liar. I was like, yeah, you got me. There's nothing I can do. And then when I was growing up, we had like one family computer, and I was really dumb, and we didn't have internet, so I have to like go to the library, and I'd like download pictures, and then I had them on the computer, and I left the flash drive plugged in, and you know, my mom was like, "What's this?" and clicks on it, and then sees like my stash
Of feet?
of feet pictures.
That's great.
And then she asked me about it, and I was like, "You got me."
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay. So, what about a girl that is not going to let you do that?
What was
Like,
your
has
question?
that ever happened? Like a girl that you're dating and she's just not going to let you do it. So then what happens? You what? Did we go over that already?
Yeah, we already went over
We'll go over it again because I don't remember what you said.
I was saying how was dating a girl and she just wasn't into it, right?
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And I thought, you know, we could have like a more like vanilla relationship.
Sure.
But then like we broke up for other things, but I tried. Like, I understand you don't like it, it's fine. Like, I was like, I don't need it. Like, there's
You would say that to her?
yeah. I'm like, oh, it's fine.
But it wasn't fine.
Well, I don't know, because it didn't, like, our relationship ended like the next week.
Well, how long did you date her?
Like a month.
Oh, that's very short. Okay.
Right. So I don't know what would have happened. So I can't speak on like how I personally would react because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, it sounds like you're like a really faithful person. So it's not like you're going to go to these parties. You're not going to just randomly, you know, go get feet or whatever the case is. So you would be like shelving a part of you.
Right.
And that's probably...
It probably would not work. Like, I would be like, no, this isn't going to work. But I can't say for certain because it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so what about when you're out in public? Like, are you know how guys like will try to pick up girls at bars and this and that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you trying to get foot sessions at bars?
No.
I've actually been like a wing woman or a wing man for one of my good friends who's into this. And he's like, you gotta help me get the feed. So we go around the bar and I go up to women and I'm like, hey, this is my friend. He's into feet. He'd love to give you a foot massage. Like, he does an amazing job. And I tell him all about my experience. And they actually let him do it. And that's how he found his current girlfriend. I was the wingman for it. So you never do anything like that?
No, but that's a good idea.
So you would be open to doing that? Like going around? Would you feel too shy?
I right now, thinking about it, I'd feel shy.
Okay.
But it's like one of those things where like if you just do it once, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst someone could say no?
Yeah,
and then you're no worse off than you were before you started.
Exactly. Well, it's the same thing with like trying to get a date. You're gonna face rejection. So you gotta just kind of shrug it off and on to the next foot. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's doable. That's probably a good way to do it. There's definitely like a lot of girls that he got, and for him, he would just go and do it. And then if he had trouble, that's when he would bring me in, and then I would like convince them further that he's not like this weird guy who just wants this and whatever.
That's the main problem with like having a foot fetish is it has like this negative stigma associated with it.
Okay.
And like the reason I think it's like there's a very vocal minority. I'd say vocal. They're like they don't have like societal skills when it comes to like their fetish. So you see like people where they just like go up to women and just start like doing whatever. Like that's not how people behave in society. Or then there's other people that they're not tactful with their approach, and they're just like, "Hey, baby, I want to fuck your foot." Like that's the first thing that they say.
Is that just online, or have you heard them say these things? Because a lot of people are hiding behind their computers.
I've heard stories of people doing it, like in a bar,
in person.
Which is why if I like tell like a female friend, they're like, "Oh, that's weird." I'm like, I swear it's not weird. There's just like this negative social stigma associated with it.
And you think it's because of how the other men have behaved?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's like it's like the most common fetish there is.
The foot fetish?
Yeah, I could have numbers, but I don't. There's like studies and such where it was like the most searched like fetish term on Yahoo or something. Like it's
really?
out there, and like statistically, like every like woman, she knows at least one foot fetish guy. Or I read that somewhere.
Oh, that's
But they just don't know it because people are like shy, because it's like, you like feet, like that's weird. But like there's
a lot of people who don't like feet, and like think feet are like ugly or disgusting. I knew somebody who like hated even touching and washing their own feet because they were so disgusted by feet. I don't know, where that comes from, but it is out there. So I thought that that's where the weirdness like factor came in. Because there are so many people who are opposed to feet.
Because it's not even something that people are indifferent about.
Yeah.
Like if you have like an elbow fetish or something like that, where people are like, whatever about elbows. But sometimes feet, I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, you're walking on the ground with it. Some people have sweaty feet. Some people have smelly feet. So I think maybe that there could be some disconnect with, people who aren't into it.
It's also like you've heard of like a foot fetish before.
Sure.
Like, there's people with that. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard of someone with like an elbow fetish.
Right.
Because it's not very common. So then you've heard of it, right? But then like you look on the media, or like you watch TV, right? And then they'll be like, someone will say they have a foot fetish, and like the rest of the people like, "Oh, you're weird."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's just how society is.
Sure.
So when people see that, they're like, "Oh, well, it must be weird." Like, I learned the term foot fetish from a TV show. Like, I knew that was me, but I didn't know what it was called. And there was a scene where like a guy is talking to a girl, and he wants to like lay in a bathtub with her shoes, and she's like, "Ew, that's gross. Do you have a foot fetish?" He's like, "Foot fetish? No, I have a shoe fetish." But like his tone was such where it was like, a foot fetish is disgusting, but a shoe fetish is fine. And her tone was just like, a foot fetish is disgusting. So I was like, that's what it's called, and I feel bad because like it doesn't seem to be accepted.
And about how old were you when that?
Like 13.
And when did you first discover your attraction?
Like 12 or
so it was
6th or 7th grade.
Yeah. Okay.
When he was staring at the girl's feet in class. Yeah.
So with that, like once I learned the term, like Google was my best friend, because then I knew like how to find what I wanted. Because what am I gonna do? Like pictures of a foot? Then you get like anatomy pictures and like.
Sure.
But when you type in foot fetish, it's more like you find what you want. And then through like foot fetish searches, I like read about like stuff like gore, like Gorian. It's some BDSM thing. I barely know what it is, but I found that. I'm like, that's not right. I found other stuff. So like I discovered like, communities, and like I discovered what BDSM was, and like because I just thought S&M, right? Like I never knew about the B and the D. And S&M had like this whole negative like thing where it's like, you're into S&M. Like I didn't know what it was. All I knew was like it's bad and you should feel bad, because that's how like social stigmas, like sex stuff like that isn't really accepted.
Yeah, it used to be classified as a mental illness to be into BDSM.
I had a girlfriend who, when I told her about my foot fetish, told me I had a mental disorder, because that's what she read in a book.
Yeah.
But she liked the foot rubs. She's just like, your mental disorder is just weird, but I like it.
So she was accepting of it. They changed it now. Now it's not considered that. I don't know about the foot fetish per se, but I know about like BDSM in general. Would you lump the two together? Because I mean, BDSM is bondage, sadomasochism, discipline. Yeah, there's a submissive quality to what you do, but it's not really encompassing all the other things.
They're like cousins. Like you can have foot fetish activities within BDSM, and you can have BDSM tendencies within foot fetish, but they're not mutually exclusive. Like they don't have to be linked. Like I can rub a woman's foot and like suck her toes, and there's nothing dominant or submissive about it.
Well, you're being submissive in the act. She's probably sitting up on a chair, and you're what? Kneeling down on the ground?
Not like...
And you're servicing her feet.
Right. And it can look submissive, but it does, like, that doesn't have to be the...
Is it how you feel? Because I do think that that's very submissive.
It's how you feel in your interaction. Like, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Like, you can just be like... A foot fetish doesn't have to be like, I'm on my knees in front of you and you're sitting in a chair.
Well, even if we were side by side and you're rubbing my feet, you're still providing a service to me. You're still giving me pleasure. Yes, you're getting pleasure too, but you're servicing me.
Right. But at the same time, is when you're having sex, is that also submissive and servicing? Because you can...
So it depends. If you're looking at like oral sex, even if you're taking turns, like one is servicing the other person.
Well, I was referring to like the baby making activity. Because there are ways to incorporate foot fetish play into, sex.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me
like,
about that.
If a woman's like on her back.
Okay.
And it's more like a missionary position.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And her feet are like up, right?
Okay.
Like by your head or like on your shoulders.
Uh-huh.
You can like suck her toes and like lick her feet right there while you're still doing the baby making activity.
Okay.
But there's nothing like submissive about that. Like there are ways to like incorporate.
I agree with that
right.
particular scenario.
So like if I don't, so I could be like just rubbing someone's feet, right? It doesn't have to be submissive. It could just be like you care about this person. Like being submissive and being kind aren't always the same thing. Like if you're married and your wife comes home and, her feet hurt and you rub her feet, like are you being like submissive? Is it like a dominant submissive role, or is it just like something vanilla that you're just doing to be kind? Like they don't have to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if it's not a stranger, if it's a significant other, no, I don't feel like that's a submissive act. But if it's like a play session or whatever, a play partner, someone that you don't know, a stranger, I do think that that's kind of submissive, or at least it views that way.
Right.
Like you said,
it can
looks
be
like that.
But like, so you can, so say someone's like has a foot fetish and they just want to play with feet, but they have to like do submissive-esque activities like kneel down or whatever. But there's nothing, it's not submissive to them. They're just satisfying their fetish. Okay. And at the same time, you have people that are just submissive and they just want to like show their submission and like experience dominance. And one way they can do that is by like kissing their dominant's feet.
Sure.
And the feet mean nothing to them. It's just another way of them to show their devotion or their submission. So in that point, like it's just it's an avenue, but they don't have to be the same thing.
So what about like your best scene? Would it include like a submissive element to it?
Mine would, because I enjoy the feeling of like submission and like play. Like I like enjoy it more than like just the normal vanilla like foot rub like we were just discussing.
Okay. Like
that does more for me.
Okay.
But like I was saying, they don't have to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So what would a scene look like that included that?
So like my like dream scenario, like my dream scene is like heavily like dominant submissive. Like I want to be like naked and with like a collar and a leash, and I want to be like kneeling down, and like, you know, worshiping like my mistress's feet, and like I always say like I want her to have like a crop, and I have a relatively low pain tolerance, but you know I don't, and those.
That's not good with me.
But I don't like. I just push through it, right? Because then I like you. I
well,
want to
have
be.
you been hit with a crop while doing that?
Yes.
Okay. So
I've
how did
been.
that go?
It adds to the scene.
Okay.
Like it makes me feel more submissive in that. Like I want like the leash to be tugged randomly, so I get like this small feeling of being choked. I want to be hit for no reason, just because you know that's she wanted to. Like that way, it's like I have no control.
But you said it's your dream, but you've already done it.
Well, that was my. I don't know where I want to go from here, because I'm not like an expert on anything. I'm like I say beginner still, but like I go to like parties and talk to people. They're like, dude, you're too knowledgeable. Like, cause
Knowledgeable in what aspect?
like how like I understand like how things should go, and like the dynamic between like, you know, a professional dominatrix and like a client versus like you go to a party and you just meet like they're usually like strippers or exotic dancers, and it's not the same dynamic.
Okay.
There's different like
because they're not dominant.
Correct.
Okay.
I was at Exotica when I was working in the foot worship station. There was a mistress who came by with her slave, and her slave was a cross-dresser. He was wearing a mask.
Okay.
And she wanted her feet rubbed, and he was rubbing her feet, and he wasn't doing a good job. So she's like, "You're into feet, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yes, mistress," because you know the dynamic.
Sure,
She's not my
course.
mistress, but she
Absolutely.
she expects that level of respect. So I was rubbing her feet, and then I was teaching her slave how to do it.
Okay.
Then she got up to go to the bathroom and told him to wait there.
Okay.
While he's waiting, he's like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, aren't you embarrassed? I'm like, why would I be embarrassed? Everyone's here for the same thing. He's like, but like I have to wear this mask because I want people to see me.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
being open about the fetish.
Right. So I told him like, you like one day you'll get to the point where you won't mind. I'm like, one day you'll probably get to that point. I want to speak in absolutes. But it's like you'll be
A
comfortable.
person with
Right.
the fetish.
You'll be comfortable with yourself. Like you might. Are you relatively new to this? It's like, yeah, I just met mistress. I forgot her name. That was years ago. He just met his mistress recently.
Okay.
So he's like, yeah, and she's teaching me all sorts of things, and you know, I'm like discovering who I am. Like, yeah, that's good, man. But one day you'll be comfortable enough where it's like, where everyone's here for the same thing. This isn't public. This is essentially like a safe space. And then the next day I saw him again. He didn't have the mask.
Maybe because of your talk. So there's
I like to think so.
There's like a certain camaraderie among foot fetishists.
Well,
would you say?
he wasn't even into feet. He was just
a slave.
a slave.
Okay.
But he was embarrassed that he liked being a cross-dresser. And he didn't
so that was
he didn't want people to judge him.
Okay.
Which is why he was wearing the mask.
So when he took the mask off, he was still in women's clothes?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. And then have you ever done anything with men's feet?
No.
So completely not into it? Is it, I know you're straight. Is it because you're straight, or because you said it's sexual, right?
Yes. It's because I'm straight. However, I've talked to women before, and they're like, if you want like the ultimate like submissive,
Yeah.
like you should have like, I don't know, people use the term cuck wrong now, but if you
I don't know that.
cuck, like a cuckold.
Oh, cuckolds, yes.
Right.
What did you say? Cuck what?
People use the term cuck wrong now.
Oh, wrong.
But if you search for like,
that was, you made it sound like it was one word,
No.
and I was like, what's a cuck wrong?
if you search like cuck, like foot worship, you always end up with like, and you will search for that in like porn site, right? Like Pornhub.
Okay.
You'll find like a woman and a guy, and like her like husband or whatever, and like then he's sucking her toes, and then the man always joins in, and then the like slave like sucks the man's toes too, And the woman I was talking to was like, yeah, just look at that. Like, if you want if you want to feel submissive, if submission gets you off, and you have a foot fetish, you should try that. So,
having a man doing that to a man.
Worship a man and a woman.
Okay, a couple.
A couple, essentially.
Okay.
That's what she told me that I should try, and she was like,
Who told you this?
An older woman, like, in the lifestyle that I met at, like, a party.
Okay.
And we were talking.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, I've never tried it.
I know.
But, I don't know. I can understand what she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also like, if you want to be, like, submissive in a relationship, like, and you tell, like, if you were my submissive and you tell me you don't like man's feet,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's the very first thing I'm using to punish you.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And maybe not even punish, but just to push your limits. Because that's what it's about, is pushing limits, at least, you know, with my lifestyle, with the BDSM. So, like, with me, you know, the most natural thing is not to want to be hurt. We shy away from it. But if I can push someone's limits through pain and they can overcome it, it's like a sense of accomplishment. And then I get to just enjoy the ride along the way. So it would be pushing your comfortability, basically.
That would definitely be pushing my comfort zone. And I don't know how I would react. Or if I'd enjoy it or not. I can't speak on it because it never happened.
But you're not completely opposed.
No.
Like, if that situation was presented to you, yes. Like, all right, so you're going to do this to my feet and you're going to do this to this guy's feet? Then what? You don't know?
I wouldn't be completely opposed.
Okay. So you're definitely open. So what about, like, a bad situation? Have you ever been in a bad situation?
No.
So everything's been fine, no issues, no problems with any
I
of
don't
the
have any, like,
girls?
juicy stories when it comes to bad situations.
Okay, that's
Because
interesting.
all of my, like, exposure's been in, like, professional sessions that went well, or, like, parties that, you know, parties were fine, like, or, like, the convention. Like, I haven't been in, like, not bad experiences.
Well, is there anything that you've done that you wouldn't do again?
Aside from paying for the convention, I've been to, like, a couple fetish clubs in the city, but I went on, like, days where, like, it was, like, free. So then it was, like, too packed, and I went, like, like, I knew people, and they invited me to come, but then they, like, ditched me instantly.
Okay.
So the only bad experiences I've had is, like, I'm very shy when it comes to stuff like that, and I just, like, ended up leaving in, like, 10 minutes.
But you didn't want to, like, stay and watch what other people were doing? Was it because it had nothing to do with feet? Because a lot of people, like, I know what you're talking about, on the free day, they're walking around nude. So you can see their feet. Like, they don't have, like, shoes or anything on. So you're still getting to witness, I don't know, dominance and submission. Maybe not necessarily with foot worship, but there's still feet there. No?
I only went, like, one time to
Okay.
each club. I went to 2 clubs, one each.
Did you go to one in the city?
I went to one in the city that has a very large staircase.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called, but every time I say that, people know what I'm talking about.
I do know what it is. Okay.
And then, so I went there, and there was, like, no room to play because it was too full. And they were, like, telling people, like, oh,
Well, they don't have free days there. Did they used to have free days?
well, I knew somebody who, like, let me in.
Yeah, a guest pass.
Right. And it was just particularly busy
Just
that day.
busy. Okay.
And then the other club has free days. But then I didn't want to go because I was, like, nervous.
To either?
To either.
Okay.
But I was like, I should just push myself to just, like, you know, the first time's going to be terrible because I'm still going to be, like, closed-minded like a little turtle. But I need to crack open the shell a little bit. But when I went to the other club, there was, in, like, the span of, like, 2 minutes.
Well, which club? In Chicago or the one out here
suburbs.
in Niles? Okay.
I saw someone tied up, like with their arms, like, hanging from, like, the ceiling. getting the shit whipped out of him.
Uh-huh.
And dude's like screaming really loud. And he's all sorts of like red. Then there was someone else who had like a bunch of wax being poured on them. And they were also like screaming in pain. But you know, they weren't using their safe word, so they were fine with it. But I was like, I'm really uncomfortable right now.
Was it seeing that? Was it seeing the pain, or?
It was like the screams. They were just...
Okay.
They were a lot for me.
Okay. Seeing that in person. And then how was it at the Chicago dungeon?
The Chicago dungeon was...
Because that's more of a private space. It's darker. They have a lot of like little rooms. The other one, he jokes that it looks like a billiard hall because it's so well lit, and then there's only like a couple you know, private rooms.
The Chicago one, there wasn't... I didn't leave because like people were in pain and I was uncomfortable. I left because there was too many people there, and I was just like... I was uncomfortable because there was too much humanity in a small space.
Okay. But you're not claustrophobic. It was just too much, like, it was like chaos, too much going on.
Right, too much going on.
And then did you go to that one with someone or no?
I went with someone who I met at a munch.
Okay.
But then, like, she left and, like, she's like, something came up and then she had to leave. And she's like, oh, you could stay, though. I was like, but I don't... So she just left because she had, like, an emergency to attend to. And then I just left soon after because I had no one to talk to.
Okay. So you didn't run into the staff there? Because if you're too aggressive with asking, you know, people, like, to rub their feet and stuff, like, they will talk to you over at the Chicago one. They're pretty strict with it, actually. At the suburban dungeon... You can just be like, hey, I like feet. I want yours. So, like, let's make this happen. And, like, nobody's going to get upset. They may say no, which is fine. But, like, you're not going to get in trouble. Like, the other one is going to, like, sit you down and be like, look, you got to find a better way to approach. Like you were saying, how, like, certain people are just, you know, going all out with it.
Right. So, if I went again... Like, I have, like, a better understanding of, like, what to expect.
Sure.
I wouldn't be overwhelmed because I will have seen it before. And I'd be less shy.
Okay.
Because I'm always super shy in, like, the beginning.
Okay. And you never went to any classes?
No.
Okay, they do have a lot of classes at the Chicago dungeon. I think there's actually foot classes and stuff there, too. I don't know, you know, what they would entail or whatever. So, back to, like, the online stuff. So, like, what's been your experience with, like, online? I know you said finding partners has been really hard.
So there's a couple. So mostly I just use FetLife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Fetish Facebook.
Yes.
There's a Chicago group. And my experience with it is there's a lot of guys that are very pushy and demanding. And, like, the entire, like, front page of, like, the group discussions is usually, like, I'm a guy, I want this, gimme, I'm not paying you.
Okay.
And I will write, like, I used to write, like, you know that's not how this works, right?
Isn't that on your profile, something about, like, I'm not paying? Or is that
No.
that's not you? Okay. I see that a lot on a lot of people's profiles. And then the girls are like, this is my wish list, buy me things.
Well, that's just it's like how the world is, right? It's... Mm-hmm. Guys think that because, you know, like a foot rub feels good to a woman, that they're doing her a favor. And they're not. She's doing them a favor because, like, foot fetish guys, if a woman's looking for a foot fetish guy, she'll find one. She'll find time. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not hard. It's very common when you want one. So when a guy posts, like, online, like, I'm not paying you, it's like, well, you have, like, 10 other guys that will... What makes you so special? Like, you're not gonna have very much success. Like, you need to pay for the convenience. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want it all and you want it now, like, that's not free. Usually, like, you might get lucky, but I don't think that's, like, the norm.
Okay.
So they'll be like, or then you'll have, like, a bunch of, like, girls that'll post, like, you know, their advertisements, like, gonna be in town doing foot worship sessions, this is my rate. And then you'll see, like, guys like, you're disgusting. How dare you charge for this? And it usually just degenerates into terribleness.
They actually do that to the pro dominatrixes. Kind of put them down for not being a lifestyle dominatrix, for accepting money. That it like they say it takes something away from it. But I mean, the ones that I know, they really enjoy what they do. So yes, they're getting paid, but they're doing a lot of like schooling, classes, research, and that all costs money. So if they're putting money in, of course, why shouldn't they be compensated?
You definitely can't become a dominatrix overnight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you can't just be all like, okay, so an outsider looking in would just see like all a dominatrix needs is some bitchy tendencies, and you could just be a dominatrix. And there's definitely a lot more to it than that. There's like being safe, like you can't just
safety's number one.
No one can just come off the street and just do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's people who have a certain knack for it, for sure. And there's others who try to learn it and they're just not very good at it, you know?
Well, right, but you still need some form of guidance.
Yeah, absolutely.
From somewhere, and like that's not free usually.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
But women do have an endless supply of partners, unlike guys. That we get a ton of messages. So let's say there's something that I haven't explored yet that I want to explore. I have to just put one post out there and I'm going to get like 50 messages. And I'm just going to be able to choose who do I want to explore this fetish with. And then you can kind of just learn along the way, you know. Mm-hmm. But for guys, I guess it's different.
And in that regard, it's if you wanted to explore something and you could like get paid along the way, like why not? Mm-hmm. Like if there's like that saying where it's like, if you like what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So, but like, it's always a bonus, right? So would you rather have a respectful guy that understands what's going on and like understands the dynamic and is willing to compensate you for your time because you're doing him a favor that he is finding difficulty, like finding a partner elsewhere? Or do you want to play with someone that's super demanding and acting entitled, like you need to do this for them because they're God's gift to women and they just want your feet? Mm-hmm. So I made a post once where I like, hey guys, to my foot fetish brothers, this is how I've seen it work. I don't know how much experience, no, not experience. I don't know how much success you'll have with your demanding posts and unwilling to compensate. Like, if you find a girl to play with you, like at least like buy her dinner, like a date, or you know, pay for her pedicure. Like it's just something.
Even if you're not trying to date the person, just like a swap, basically.
Right. If you have to pay for the convenience. Mm-hmm. If you otherwise, like if you meet someone like vanilla and you share your fetish and they enjoy it, then that's good. Mm-hmm. But that's not what you're looking for with posts like what we're discussing. Like you want it fast. So like it's easier to get stuff fast when you're willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. So how do you like being in this lifestyle and like having this fetish and the community?
Well, like it interests me and I want to learn more. And I try going to like, you know, events and meeting people. And it's not that I'm shy about my fetish. I'm just shy in general.
Okay.
Like, I'm very reserved with meeting new people.
Okay.
So, it's having, like, being in the lifestyle and unable to meet new people isn't the reason I don't meet a ton of new people. It's I just don't meet people in general. So
then doesn't it make it harder for you to fulfill your fetish?
It did until, you know, you discover the avenues where you just pay for the convenience, and then it's easy.
Okay.
Like, I know how to find parties.
Is that fulfilling for you? Like, is it better for you to get a foot session without having to pay for it? Not just financially, but just like mentally. Does it make any difference? Or in the end, you're still getting it, so it doesn't matter?
In the end, I'm still getting it, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. So it's about the end result. So then if you're not really interacting, like, how do you know about like the BDSM community, like the people that are in it? Is it just interacting online mostly?
My experience is mostly just interacting online. I talk to some people like when I go to parties.
Okay.
But I don't really go to too many like munches or anything.
Sure, but you've been.
I've been to like
you
two.
said you met. Okay.
But.
And how did you feel about that? What did you think of the people?
I mean, like, people in like kink communities aren't like different than like normal people. It's just people.
Well, that's why I'm doing this
Right.
podcast, because that's what I'm trying to show.
It's like going to a munch is no different than just going to like any other event. You share an
Sure.
interest, and that's what brought you together. But like, I'm not gonna like go to a munch and all I want to do is talk about feet. It's like, hey, how about the weather? What about those sports teams?
Yeah, but people do ask, what are you into?
They
you
do,
know?
but it's more of like just a conversation starter.
Yeah, absolutely.
From what I've
I
seen.
would agree.
Like, but like those events, it's just people. Like, there's nothing different about the way you met. I want to say, I have no idea what I'm trying to say right now.
It's okay. Okay. So what do you think are some of the misconceptions of like your lifestyle?
Well, I talked about the negative stigma associated with foot
Yes.
fetishism. Like, people that don't understand like the BDSM lifestyle and like fetishes in general, I feel they're just not open-minded. Like, they already made up their mind based on like what they've seen in the media, and you're not going to convince them, is my experience. Like, they just think you're weird.
Well, what about people that are in the community that have their own fetishes, maybe something different than yours? Do you still think that like they may have some misconceptions? Not just vanilla people.
I don't think it's as like extreme.
Okay.
It's like,
So
they-
you found that it's more accepting?
right, because they also have a kink.
Okay.
It might not be your kink.
Sure.
But they understand what it's like to have a kink, so they're more accepting of like they're not judgmental, is what I want to say.
So has that been your experience with FetLife? Is that just people are pretty non-judgmental on there?
When you're just talking, yeah.
And then what else?
Well, there's like two things FetLife's used for. It's like people just looking to like play, like I said, like the whole like super demanding post. And there's other people, they just want to talk. They just, want to meet people that are like them, and
Like-minded people,
maybe
sure.
they're-
Like a sense of community.
yeah, camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's what I think too. Adam, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm just curious in your opinion of some of the more vanilla people. Do you think that they might have their own fetishes that they're closed-minded to, so they don't even see or allow that to be discovered, or do you think maybe they are aware, right, but they suppress it? Do you think that's a possibility?
We had a guest on that said everyone has a fetish.
That's probably true.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people where like they might be ashamed of what they like and try to suppress it. Like, I agree with that statement.
Or maybe just not self-aware enough.
That sounds good too.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, because vanilla is just subjective. Like, there's nothing like written in the sky that says like normal is this.
Yes.
Right.
It's just what's like societal norms define what vanilla
Well, we
is.
have like an idea. I mean, because look at sitcoms of what like they say normal is. It's getting to a certain age, like probably meeting your sweetheart in college, getting engaged, getting married, having the 2.5 kids or
And a
whatever
dog.
it is. The dog, exactly. And then it used to be like the white picket fence. And then the marital bliss goes out the window. And then the wife is not fucking her husband. And then there's cheating. Like, it's a whole thing. But that's what's normal, So somebody who has something different, we're looked at differently. But, so you think maybe everybody has something?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Good? Anything else?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to Bound to Talk. Look for us on YouTube, iTunes, or visit boundtotalk.com.